Blue Jays fans, buckle up because what I'm about to break down is going to have you absolutely fired up. The Dylan Cease signing was massive, a $210 million deal. That's the biggest free agent contract in Toronto Blue Jays history. But here's the thing. Multiple reports dropped late last night and this morning confirming that the Blue Jays are not done, not even close. In fact, what's coming next could be even bigger, and the secret behind how they pulled off the Cease deal this early in the offseason is something you need to hear because it changes everything about how we should be thinking about this team's future. Let's get into it. First things first, are the Blue Jays still in on Kyle Tucker? Are they still pursuing Bo Bichette? According to Keegan Matheson, the answer is a resounding yes. The Blue Jays have the financial flexibility to be in on whoever they want, and while the Cease deal does make it slightly less likely that they land both Tucker and Bichette, it absolutely does not eliminate them from the running. Read that again. They can still get both if they want to. That's not me being a homer. That's coming from credible reporters who cover this team every single day. Think about what that means for a second. The Blue Jays could realistically add Kyle Tucker and bring back Bo Bichette on top of the Dylan Cease extension. If that happens, Toronto would instantly jump into the top three or maybe even number one in payroll across all of Major League Baseball. They'd be right there with the Dodgers and the Mets in terms of spending. And why wouldn't they? Rogers Communications is the second richest ownership group in baseball, behind only Steve Cohen. They have the resources, they have the motivation after coming within inches of a World Series title. And now they have the proof of concept that big-name players actually want to come to Toronto. But it's not just about Tucker and Bichette. According to Matheson's report, the Blue Jays bullpen is the next logical area of focus. Last winter, they brought back Jimmy Garcia on a low-risk deal. This winter, they're expected to aim higher. And here's where it gets really interesting. Past Blue Jays teams had to spend money on bullpen arms, even in smaller chunks, because they didn't have the internal development pipeline to produce reliable relievers. Now they've developed enough homegrown bullpen talent that they can reallocate that money elsewhere. That's a massive shift in how this front office can operate, and it's why they're being linked to elite closers like Edwin Diaz and Robert Suarez. John Heyman dropped a report confirming that the Blue Jays are seen as serious players for both Diaz and Suarez. Let that sink in. They just signed Dylan Cease to the richest free agent deal in franchise history, and they're still actively pursuing one of the best closers in baseball. That tells you everything you need to know about where this organization's head is at right now. They're not satisfied with making the World Series. They want to win it, and they're willing to spend whatever it takes to get there. Shi Davidi provided even more context on why the Cease signing makes so much sense. He pointed out that Cease is an incredibly durable starter who doesn't miss games. That reliability was huge for the Blue Jays, especially after dealing with injury concerns in the rotation over the past few seasons. But Davidi also emphasized that the Blue Jays are expected to keep pushing in the Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker markets. Multiple reporters are now saying the same thing. Matheson, Heyman, Davidi, they're all confirming that Toronto is still very much in the mix for these guys. A lot of people thought that signing Dylan Cease would take the Blue Jays out of the running for Bo Bichette or Kyle Tucker. That was the assumption. You make one big move, you step back, you reassess. But that's not what's happening here. This front office is being aggressive in a way we haven't seen in years, maybe ever. And there's a reason for that. Kevin Pillar tweeted something really insightful after the Cease signing. He talked about how the world-class facilities in Toronto make a huge difference when recruiting players. The player development complex, the renovated Rogers Center, the treatment players and their families receive, all of that matters. And now, 5 years after the player development complex opened and 3 years after the Rogers Center upgrades, the proof of concept finally exists. Mitch Bannon expanded on this point, saying that facility upgrades take time to have an impact, both in terms of drawing players and maximizing the tools those facilities provide. The Blue Jays are now 5 years into the player development complex era and 3 years into the new Rogers Center player facilities. That investment is starting to pay off in a real tangible way. And obviously the World Series appearance didn't hurt. Free agents see that. They see a team that came within one game of winning it all. They see a fan base that's passionate and hungry. They see a city that treats players and their families incredibly well. All of those factors are now working in Toronto's favor in a way they haven't before. For years, we heard about the facilities and the player development upgrades, but it didn't directly translate to landing top-tier free agents. That's changed. Dylan Cease is proof. And the fact that they got this deal done on November 26th, which is insanely early for a signing of this magnitude, tells you that players are more willing to commit to Toronto than they've been in the past. That's a huge shift, and it's not just a one-off thing. This is sustainable. This is something that will help the Blue Jays compete for top free agents for years to come. Now let's talk about what comes next. The Blue Jays have their ace locked up long-term in Dylan Cease. They've got Vlad Guerrero Jr. signed to a massive extension as their cornerstone position player. The rotation is set. The core is in place. Now it's about adding the pieces around that core to make this team a legitimate juggernaut. That means getting a big bat, whether it's Kyle Tucker, Bo Bichette, or someone else through a trade. It means upgrading the bullpen with an elite closer like Edwin Diaz. And it means continuing to develop young talent internally so they can sustain this level of competitiveness for the long haul. The trade market is also an option if the Blue Jays decide they don't want to go all in on both Tucker and Bichette. Ketel Marte has been mentioned as a potential target. There are other bats available. The point is Toronto has options. They have financial flexibility. They have a front office that's proven they're willing to be aggressive. And they have an ownership group that clearly wants to win after experiencing the heartbreak of losing the World Series. If you go back and watch the footage of Ed Rogers celebrating when he thought the Blue Jays had won the World Series, you can see how much this means to him. That's an owner who wants a championship and he's willing to spend to get it. The lockout that's potentially coming in 2027 doesn't matter right now. The focus is on winning now, and the Blue Jays have positioned themselves to do exactly that. So where does this leave us? The Blue Jays just made the biggest free agent signing in franchise history, and they're not done. They're still pursuing Kyle Tucker. They're still working on bringing back Bo Bichette. They're targeting elite relievers. And they're doing all of this because they know their window is open right now. This isn't about building for the future. This is about capitalizing on the roster they have and adding the final pieces to get over the hump. Here's what I want to know from you. Do you think the Blue Jays should go all in and try to land both Tucker and Bichette? Or should they focus on one big bat and spend the rest on pitching depth? Do you want to see Edwin Diaz closing games in Toronto? Or would you rather they spread that money around to multiple relievers? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear what you think. And make sure you're subscribed because this offseason is just getting started and the Blue Jays are about to make some noise. This team is ready to break the MLB and bring a championship back to Toronto. Let's go.